Clients come to us with agendas. Usually they have to do with love or money. So they want to get into a relationship or they want to get out of a relationship or they want to get into a career or change a career. And working with a client on those kinds of issues is real and legitimate work. You put together a strategy, you have accountability, and the process moves forward and the client achieves the goal. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's really the basis of a lot of coaching. But let's say also in the process the client is dreaming. And let's take an example. Let's say that your client is a woman working in an organization where another woman who is a colleague of hers, it looks pretty clear that she is going to get promoted and that your client is going to report to this person. And the problem is that your client experiences this person as a bit of a bully and a bit of an authoritarian. And there's an anxiety that is building in terms of how is your client going to handle this situation. Well, again, there are strategies that you can put together that will make this either an easier situation for your client to be in or a strategy that says, let's go find another place to work. But let's say in this situation, your client has a dream. And in that dream, she is with this colleague and she has a painting in the dream. And the painting means a great deal to her. And she shows it and hands it to this other person. And the other person, this woman who's going to be her boss, in the course of looking at the painting, breaks the frame, shreds the canvas, and then hands all the pieces and parts back to the client and turns and walks away. Now, it is tempting to take that dream as validation of the client's perception. Certainly, that's what the client is probably going to think when she brings the dream in. And there's a bit of a danger here because twofold. One is, in my experiences, dreams don't usually validate those kinds of perceptions in that kind of way. Dreams are usually about another dimension of what a situation is. And so what happens is when you look into the dream, you'll find something that really isn't necessarily associated with the agenda that the client has brought to you, which is I have a problem at work and I want to work on figuring out how to deal with it. So if we go back into that dream and we begin to ask the client, what was this painting about? Do you remember? Did you see it? Well, yes, it was about a place that I grew up as a child, which means a great deal to me. And it's a place where there was a lot of love and affection. And I got a lot of a sense of myself when I lived in that place. And so in the dream, you're giving that to someone who is basically destroying it. What does that mean to you? And so there's an exploration here around what is central, what values that client has that in fact probably shouldn't be given away without some discernment, probably shouldn't be even exposed without some discernment as to whether or not there was a basis for that kind of intimate communication. And perhaps what we get to, and there's a lot of perhaps in this, but perhaps what we get to is a situation and a discussion where we start talking about, well, what's appropriate for you in each given situation? And are you finding yourself giving of yourself in situations where it's not going to be received or where it's inappropriate? And once we have that discussion and once we begin to understand boundaries, and what's interesting about our culture is we tend to think of boundaries as how we keep people out, how we basically defend ourselves. But there's another way to think about boundaries. Boundaries are about what we keep in, what is the essence of who we are that we can't give away, that we should not give away, that in fact form the framework of a generosity in us that can be given away, but not the essence of who we are. So we really have a choice with dreams. We can either see them as a reflection of a symptom, that is to say, I'm having a reaction to a situation where I may be bullied, which is a legitimate thing to do in some cases, but doesn't really get us to the core of the issue, which is really a more systemic view. What is it about your client in that moment that is causing her difficulty? Because in fact, she is giving something that can't be given, should not be given, basically is destructive to her if it's given. And by retaining that, by having a boundary within herself about the essence of herself, creates tremendous amount of strength. And that's really, as adults, how we deal with bullies. They're irrelevant to us. They're projecting their own shadow. They're frightened people. They're folks that really have no power over us. And the way we understand that is by getting connected and grounded to the essence of ourselves. So one of the things about Dreamwork is that it tends to reshape agendas in the sense that it doesn't dismiss what a client wants. You know, a client wants to be happy at work. And that's a legitimate thing, and certainly a reasonable thing for them to want to come to coaching for and pay us money to help them accomplish. But what a dream will do is it will take that initial agenda and it will shape it in terms of the real underlying issue that a person has in their life when they are confronted by someone, in this case, who may bully them, or when they're confronted by adversity. They really need a sense of their own essence and a sense of themselves. And so what dreams do really is they take the egoic desire, which is not to be bullied, and they expand it. And they make it more about your soul's purpose. And so then, when this woman understands that there are values in the essence of who she is and what she honors in herself, then the choice about whether she stays or goes really becomes less fraught. It really becomes obvious in terms of what she needs, in terms of the essence of who she is. So that's how I use dreams in those kinds of situations. And I'm really gratified by having taught this class for a year and the dimension that a lot of coaches are getting in their work once they finish the class. So if you're interested in this kind of work, in a second there'll be a slide come up and I can tell you about how you can enter the course, and there's a discount code and all that good stuff. So thanks for listening, and I hope this was useful.